والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله وأصحابه وأهل بيته أجمعين ومن سار على نهجه إلى يوم الدين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I extend my pleasure and warm welcome to all the attendees joining us for today's insightful session organized by the IOU Pakistan Student Committee, Punjab chapter under the esteemed platform of the International Open University. The IOU stands as a pioneering institution dedicated to providing high-quality Islamic and academic education to students worldwide through accessible online and quality learning. It is more than a university, it is a global movement committed to empowering individuals with authentic Islamic knowledge alongside contemporary disciplines, ensuring a balanced and holistic approach to education. My name is Muhammad Khalid, and I am honored to be your host for the important discussion on the topic of significance of integrating Islamic principles into modern education, that is the role of Islamized education. It is also my privilege to introduce our distinguished speaker of today, Sir Qaiser Ahmed Raja, a prominent figure in the fields of philosophy, science, and religion. As a dedicated researcher of these disciplines, he ardently critiques the misuse of science as a tool for promoting atheism and agnosticism. Beyond his academic pursuits, Mr. Raja is an international life coach and a corporate trainer trusted by globally recognized organizations such as BMW, the National Health Service in the United Kingdom, and various startups across the European Union and the United Kingdom. His deep commitment to personal and professional development has empowered individuals and organizations worldwide. So, with his extensive expertise and dedication to integrating Islamic principles into contemporary discourse, Mr. Raja brings invaluable insights to today's discussion. We are privileged to have him share his knowledge and perspectives with us. So without further ado, let us extend our warm welcome to our distinguished guest speaker, Sir Qaiser Ahmed Raja. Over to you, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible?
Yeah. Wa alaikum assalam, sir. You are audible.
Right. Okay. I suppose the first question ought to be whether you would prefer this into in English or should we go into Urdu mode? I'm not sure about the audience.
Probably we can begin with English, and at times we will switch.
All right. That's absolutely fine. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulihil Kareem. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Thank you very much indeed. It's such an honor and privilege to be part of such an amazing platform, which is working very hard in the interest of dissemination of knowledge, and it's really doing it in a way that we should have started long time ago. But here we are now. We have the model to emulate, and my prayers for all the people who are taking part into it. Islamization of knowledge is the topic I ought to talk about today. And I also like to apologize for being delayed, for this delay that was a bit of technical things we need to figure out before we could come live. But now that we are here, let's get straight into it, shall we? Now, when we say Islamization of knowledge, I think we have to define the expression first, because the misunderstanding that can find its way into it is that maybe the knowledge itself is not Islamized, and now you want to put the label of Islam on all the knowledge which is found. So we need to understand when it comes to the theory of knowledge, what does Islam posit? What Islam says is that there are certain type of knowledge which is exclusive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is certain type of knowledge which is limited to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and those that are trusted with that knowledge. And then there is third type of knowledge which is open to all mankind. The operative word here is mankind. So not just the Islamic Ummah, it is for everyone. Now, that is when we are talking about maths and science, and within science, all the subdisciplines of it, be it biology or chemistry or anything else for that matter. And similarly, it goes towards the development of all other types of knowledge, the knowledge that we can get from it. Now, that knowledge, when we say Islamification of it, what it means is that ultimately all knowledge exists to help the human flourishing. If there is any knowledge which doesn't contribute to human flourishing, or if it is contributing towards the destruction of humanity, for example, well, that is not the knowledge that we are talking about. So if all the knowledge is out there, and so long as it is there for the flourishing of humans, well, that knowledge is Islamic. Now, some people, they take a very narrow view when it comes to Islamic knowledge. They take the view that, we are talking about salah and fasting and recitation of Quran. Yeah, sure, that is Islamic knowledge. But Islamic knowledge is not just limited there. Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran that you ought to look at the phenomena, and from there you ought to derive, or you ought to reach the conclusion that this is not product of some random accident, but this is very carefully schemed program. So this is how you put yourself on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What Allah doesn't say is, I'm God, I made it, you have to believe in it. That's it. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that go beyond these commands, explore it yourself. Go and figure out. And all those paths, so long as you don't influence yourself with some other commitment to materialism, for example, or commitment to methodological naturalism, for example, or any other type of naturalism, for example. So you're not biased before you conduct that inquiry. These paths, they will lead back to me. So by all means, you do it. Now, along the way, what you do is you create certain other subdisciplines of knowledge. That could be in philosophy, that could be in science, that could be any other place. So that is open to all the humanity. So when we say the Islamization of knowledge, it doesn't mean that you look at the non-Muslims and look at their knowledge and you say, okay, how can I Islamize this? This is not what we are talking about. We are not, when it comes to that knowledge, we don't say 2 plus 2 is 4 because, yeah, Allah wills it so. No, we say 2 plus 2 is 4. That's it. That's that. But we believe that to be Islamic because that knowledge itself is created by the creator of all the knowledge. And that knowledge is given to the mankind in an abstract form, and mankind is given intellect to convert that knowledge from its abstract state into functional state. And that could be any field of life. It could be law, it could be medicine, it could be biology or chemistry, you name it. All of those fields are out there. Because ultimately, that is what the relationship we have with this type of knowledge. But when we take a different view, which is narrower view, we like to add another dimension to it, which I suppose is the purpose of today's class. And that is that when we have the knowledge, we like to have the Islamic theme into it, because many of the contemporary disciplines of knowledge, they are reduced to just skill side of it or the technical side of it. What goes missing is the ethical side of it or the moral side of it. Just to give you an example, we have customer services, right, as the discipline, which is taught at colleges, universities, MBA. It's there. Sure, it's great, a great discipline because it is about your relationship with other people. It's about fulfilling your commitments. It's about not misleading people. It's about being open and honest about your products. It's about looking after your customers. That's all wonderful. And it is taught separately, which is also good. But if you are to Islamize any of the knowledges, any type of it, you would find that the customer services is built in. It's not something separate. So for example, if you happen to be a motorbike mechanic, so your job is just to repair motorbikes. You can go to any technical institute in which you will learn. They will teach you this is how you fix the bike, and that's it. Yeah, go on. That's as good as it gets. But the Islamization of it would actually take you further and farther. For example, in Islam, we don't have the buyer aware category or the buyer aware state. We actually have the seller aware. So, which means, in UK, for example, or many of the Western countries, when you buy a car, if you see a label on it that says sold as seen, what that essentially means is that you are buying it exactly as it is. Once you have taken it, there is absolutely no responsibility. You find any faults? Great. If you didn't find any faults, well, that's on you. Sold as seen. Because buyer has to be aware of what the buyer is buying. Well, Islam says no, you've got to be seller aware. So when you're selling something, irrespective of whether or not the buyer figures out if there is something wrong with whatever you're selling, you got to tell him first, or her for that matter. You got to do it. So Islamization of knowledge, I mean, this is the customer services we are talking about. So Islamization of knowledge is that it doesn't reduce any knowledge just to its technical or the skill side. It actually embeds the ethical side to it, part of which is customer services. So this is what we mean by Islamification of knowledge or Islamization. Is you don't learn things simply because you just want to learn how to do it, but you do it because ultimately it comes to human flourishing. Remember, that part is very, very important. Now, what are the other fields? There are massive fields out there. We need to Islamize those because of their ethical considerations. Think of, we mentioned one example, being a motorbike mechanic. What about becoming an expert in international relations? Something completely different, something which is much more sophisticated, much more intellectual. We have had a very rich history of that as well, of international relations, for example, that came in the form of Sayyar law, which is now pretty much obsolete, but I think there's a good case to revive it. It's about how the Muslim world interacts with the non-Muslim world, how they coexist, and how they accept each other, and where are the limits, and how they accept each other, and so forth. Now, when you talk about the international relations, you always have a particular lens from which you will view that. So that could be a liberal view of international relations, or it could be socialist view of international relations. If it is socialist, it is directly my way or highway. If it is liberal, it is indirectly my way or highway, because ultimately you will have to conform to that worldview. But when it comes to Islam, Islam doesn't have that problem. Let me give you an example, because I don't want you to listen to me as a biased Muslim that, whatever Qaiser is saying, that must be right because he's talking good about Islam.
We will
No.
pose questions and we will let
Ji?
you complete first, and we will
Yeah,
pose
sure.
questions accordingly,
Yeah,
because
sure.
I want the listeners to benefit most from your insightful discussion. So I don't want to interrupt. I want you, and I want you to carry on for some time. I will pose some questions.
Well, that's very kind of you. So I'll go on for another 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll open up for questions then. So the example I was going to give, you see, when you have the liberal theory, and when it comes to domination, for example, you take over a certain piece of land, well, the values must be liberal. And that's why we see same pattern time and time again. You create a war, you devastate a country, then you start a massive rebuilding project, and you recreate that country in the liberal image. All the values, the banking system, the media, everything else will conform to certain liberal values. Comes to socialists, they did exactly the same thing in Central Asia. They just came with a ruthless power, suppressed the religious institutes, killed people, and said, well, this is our system, get on with it. That's it. That's that. There's nothing more to it. Then you look at the Islamic system. After a war, and the war itself has certain terms and conditions that you have to abide by. It's not that you just mindlessly get up and start waging war. No, there has to be certain reasons. Once you comply with those reasons, war takes place. And when you win, Islam doesn't say my way or highway. Islam says your political system, keep it. Your economical system, keep it. No problem. That's yours. What we will do is we will ensure that there is no oppression on the weak. and the needy. That is something we will intervene in. Apart from that, we keep your system as it is. You don't have to abide by our systems. You don't even have to pay zakah, for example. Sure, you have to pay fidya, which is significantly less than zakah, but zakah is obligatory in Muslims. You're not Muslims. You're not going to burden you with that. So
So
you keep your systems.
that's a really good thing you pointed
Yeah.
out, because people mostly make a comparison and draw a parallel that Muslims forcefully imposed jizya at that times, and they are that's a biased view. Mostly people start to attack, and you know uh, that's the reason why our youth and the students who are some in a realm of agnosticism, they say that that's wrong, because you can't by hook or crook grab the money like that. So you pointed out that it's equivalent to the system of zakah. Muslim need to pay
It's actually
zakah.
less than that. It's
Yeah,
actually less than that.
less than that.
Jizya is less than zakah. And the reason it's not zakah is because zakah is not obligatory upon them. It's one of the pillars in Islam. It's not the pillars of any non-Islamic religion or system. But you still have to keep the system going. You still have to look after the system. You still have to provide the security and safety and everything else. Just like you have to pay taxes, well, you have to pay jizya. But that is not imposed on people just because whoever the ruler is, on the whim of the ruler, he or she thought, yeah, let's get that done. It's not like that. So we are, mind you, we're still talking about the international relations, and we are still talking about the rule of engagement and so forth. And I'm just giving you one example that when it comes to the liberal viewpoint, other people don't have their say, because it is not about human flourishing, it's about liberal flourishing. When it comes to the Soviet socialism, for example, it's not about human flourishing, it's about this flourishing of their system. But when it comes to Islam, Islam talks about the human flourishing, therefore Islam doesn't impose any of the values or the Islamic values on other people and say, look, being a Muslim is your choice. Invitation is here, but whether or not you accept that invitation, that's entirely your choice. So based on this, we are not going to construct any kind of constructive system or constructive pressure on you that you feel compelled that now you have to become Muslim. That's what liberals do. Secular socialists, they don't do that because they don't create any constructive pressure. They create direct pressure. It's my way or highway, like I said, it's direct. So Islamization of knowledge means that whenever you engage with any discipline, be it biology or politics or international relations or anything else like that, you look at the underlying theme, and that is the development of humanity, flourishing of humanity, and that is the theme that you carry. That's why we have to learn these things from Islam. And second, very important reason for Islamization of knowledge is that, look, if Islam makes a claim, which it does quite rightfully, that it is a complete way of life, which means that it necessarily is going to encompass all form of knowledge. It's going to do that. But if you have a certain knowledge which stands at odds with Islam, well, that is going to create a problem of compatibility. How to solve that problem is by looking at the comprehensive system of Islam and ask, what does Islam say on this particular matter? So that matter could be, for example, any fiqh related issue. That matter could be anything political, for example. And Islam gives you that right and set of obligations with it. So you go and you carry the balance of your rights and your obligations, and then you go ahead and implement the system. What you can't do is to say that, look, I'm a Muslim. I teach my kids science, and within science, what I do is I teach biology, for example, or chemistry, for example, and along the way, I also teach evolution, particularly in biology. And under the pretext of science, I tell people that you are a product of an accident. And this is the result of not including Islamic systems into education, because when you don't make the logical case for a human body, for example, how complicated it is, and that the only scientific conclusion you can arrive is that it must be created, it must be designed, because There is no way by which this could be an accidental thing. And you go through all the systems and the subsystems for the cardiovascular system, for example. You look at how the cardiovascular system itself is my favorite because just that tells you that human body can't have evolved because of the complications that would have arisen if it were um, just evolved. But then we have number of other systems, the cognitive faculties we have, and so forth. When we don't Islamize that, we leave a huge swathes of intellectual territory. We leave that open. And who fills it? Well, people who are under the pretext of science, people who promote the atheistic ideologies, be it scientism, be it philosophical naturalism, or materialism, or be it methodological naturalism. This is what eventually people are going to get. And that space will be filled by that. And then in the end, what happens is people think, well, because there is evolution, therefore Islam must be wrong. Well, what I'm saying is don't challenge evolution simply because it tells you that Islam is wrong. No, start teaching people biology with logic.
Yeah. So
Creation,
mostly
for example.
people mostly believe in empirical evidence, and those who attack Islamic teachings, they say that we don't find any empirical evidence of what you claim. So what's
Okay.
your take on that?
Okay, what is the empirical evidence for any person to believe in evolution? So what is the empirical data that 500 million years ago, we were something else? What is the empirical evidence of that?
That's surely
And any person uh, who learns biology and evolution in school, all he is learning is what other people are saying. That is not that person's empirical evidence. So why do you place your faith in other people when you believe that you believe in empiricism, when clearly that is not the case? So what you're saying is that I am not going to believe in what you believe because I believe in empiricism, but in claiming that, I only place my faith in other people. This is how absurd it is. This is how absurd it is. We've recently concluded a course called A Science Fraud, in which we've explained thoroughly how the atheistic worldview is smuggled into science, and what they call science is not science. It isn't. It's just it's a science in name. Because if science is not objective, then, well, it's never science. So what we now have at the moment, people who teach evolution, we would just, I guess we're talking a bit too much about evolution, but this is just a good example to explain why knowledge got to be Islamized, is that um, when you have a priori commitment to things such as materialism, things such as methodological naturalism, then you have already confined science to a very particular worldview, which means it is no longer objective. And if it isn't objective, no matter how much you cry hard that this is science, well, it isn't. No matter what you do, it is no longer science. It's end of story. Job done, finished. So now you have to prove that this is science. And the moment you do that, you will have to remove the restrictions of methodological naturalism, and you have to go to methodological pluralism. That they won't. So my job is to let people know that, look, we are not against science. When we say Islamization of knowledge, what we're saying is we love science. We absolutely do. We want to make it objective. We want to emancipate science from this narrow worldview of atheism. The question you asked earlier, that when people say we believe in empiricism, look, empiricism itself is not. It's a hugely problematic position, because if people say empiricism is right, that means that the only way by which you can figure out things is through observation or experimentation. So that applies to everything universally. That's what empiricism is all about. One of the better ways in philosophy to ascertain the the value of a statement is, or the truth value of it, is to apply the principle of that statement on that statement, and then you see if it holds up. If it does, well, that means it's a philosophically sound and a statement with good merit. So let us do that. So the statement is, in the empiricists, what they say is that intuition itself is not good enough.
yeah.
Rationalism itself is not good enough. And by that, I don't mean rationality, I mean rationalism, which is a counterposition to empiricism.
There are no
Sorry?
innate ideas. There are no
Yeah,
innate ideas or inborn ideas in human beings. Yeah.
exactly. So no intuition, no innate, no inborn. Fair enough. And then they make a claim that everything, empirically speaking, everything that you can know can only be based on your observation or your experience. But then the very next question is, now we are applying the principle of this statement on this statement. The next question is, do you know everything? Inevitable answer is no. And if the inevitable answer is no, that means it is your intuition that only source of knowledge is through your observation or experimentation.
Yeah, that's
You can only make that statement if you know everything. But if you don't know everything, but still hold this belief that the only source of knowledge of everything is through empiricism, that statement itself is faith-based. I'm not entirely sure if I've been able to convey what I'm trying to say here.
there's a
Um,
logical fallacy in that. I got your point. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So for that reason, we say, yeah, empiricism is great. We are not denying empiricism,
So
but
do
we
you
are
think
not going into this unnecessary the binary scheme of you either has to go with rationalism or empiricism. We believe both are very, very important so long as they don't become rigid. This is the Islamization of knowledge. Throughout the history, when Islam is fused with the knowledge, it respected both positions. We can't deny observation. We can't deny human experience. At the same time, we can't deny that we have inbuilt intuition, something that we are born with. I guess this is where I probably should stop talking because we only have another 20 minutes. And our time is fairly close after that. So if we leave final 20 minutes for question and answers, what do you think, sir?
Q&A section? Let me view it
Sure.
in the comment section.
Yeah, sure.
Are there any attendees? Let me check. Assalamualaikum. Are there any questions, brothers and sisters? You can ask our worthy speaker, Mr. Qaiser Ahmed. He is there to answer your queries. So can I ask a personal question?
If it is personal to me, then I can only answer that after listening to the question.
My question, for the
Oh, okay,
debate.
your person. Yeah, sure.
In today's context, personally,
Yeah.
I want to ask a question. So, sir, do
Of
you believe
course.
that there needs to be a reconciliation between the evolutionists and the creationists, and we arrive at a certain, synthesis, like this kind of thing?
Look, if the central agreed upon common ground is science, then sure, anything which is scientifically speaking verifiable and anything which is scientifically proven, I think that should be accepted. There's no problem with that. What I'm trying to say is that us the Muslims, we don't categorically deny evolution. We don't say evolution, everything about evolution is wrong. Now, we say that, look, there is plenty of scientific evidence of adaptation, which is also known as microevolution. So, yeah, sure, we have no problem with that. But when you look at some changes taking place at the intraspecies level, and then you create a mental construct, I say mental construct because there is no scientific evidence of that construct in reality. And you look at those changes at the minute level and you create a mental construct to extrapolate that into macro scale and try to explain that all this diversity can be traced back to a single cell. Is that science? And the answer is no, it isn't. So that we can't agree. I mean, there cannot be any common ground on that. So yeah, we can reconcile on anything which is scientifically speaking falsifiable, scientifically speaking provable, sure, it's not a problem.
So you believe that it's not un-Islamic to believe in the reality of evolution or something like that. Islam does not outrightly reject or refute evolution.
When it comes to adaptation, for example, Islam is actually quite encouraging of that. For example, time and again in Quran, it is mentioned that you've been created from a single couple, and then you were put into different groups and tribes and so forth. And you can clearly see that all of us descendants of same man and same woman, Adam and Hawa alayhimus salam, but some of us are black, some of us are white, some of us are more with hairy bodies, some of them are not, some of them with a different nose structure, some of them with the other. I mean, that type of diversity is something which is very much understandable. Religiously, it is explained. Scientifically speaking, it can be and is explained. No problem at all. It's only when you cross the boundaries of species and without giving any evidence. And by the way, just in case if somebody misunderstands the point or somebody misquotes me on this, when I say species, I mean kinds, because there is a very narrow definition of species that the evolutionists use. So which basically is that even two animals of same kind, so long as they cannot interbreed or they cannot produce an offspring that is not capable of producing further offsprings, then yeah, you will say that those are two different species. I'm not talking about that very narrow view of species. I mean the kinds. So if there is no scientific evidence that such a boundary can be crossed, well, I'm not going to accept something in name of science which is not scientifically speaking proven.
Are there any questions? Sure. Let's check in the comment section. So I got your point on that, and that was really insightful for me personally. And you cleared a lot of my queries regarding the creationism and evolution and all the stuff. And I time and again watch the series. You have continued on the evolution and on your new channel, and that's pretty. I would like that you would in future you may bring the stuff in English, and like that your voice may be heard at large and people may start benefiting from and you, as you say, that you keep on debunking the fallacies and the pseudoscience. So I would like that you will do a series in English so that maximum people benefit from that.
It's very kind of you. Thank you. Right, sir. Anything else for me?
I guess we are done with the interview. So I'm really thankful for you for being there and for sharing your insight and deep, thought-provoking, philosophical debate. That was really honored to be with you. And
thank you, sir. This is very, very kind of you. Thank you. Inshallah, Aziz, I will, I suppose, see you around.
For the speaker, Dr. Qaiser, Mr. Qaiser Ahmed Raja, and Alhamdulillah, we have reached the end of our session. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Sir Qaiser Ahmed Raja and for his enlightening lecture and importance of he very well explained the importance of aligning the course curricula and the stuff related to education with Islamic moral values and Islamic teachings. That was, very, very kind of him. And as we conclude, let us remember that the pursuit of knowledge is not an, educational endeavor. It's our religious and moral obligation as well, because, that's going to shape our future generations. So that's all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the wisdom to seek the beneficial knowledge and to benefit from people like Sir Qaiser Ahmed Raja and apply it in a way that benefits us and our surroundings and the people and the society at large. So in this regard, I would like to say that International Open University, IOU, founded by Dr. Bilal Bradley Phillips, is dedicated to providing accessible, affordable, and high quality education rooted in Islamic values with a vision to make authentic Islamic knowledge accessible to all. IOU offers a diverse range of degree programs that include Islamic studies, Arabic language, business studies, IT, computer, and business administration. So through its flexible online learning, IU continues to empower students worldwide with knowledge that integrates both spiritual and professional excellence. Jazakumullahu khairan once again for being with us throughout the session. And I hope so that you will stay tuned and keep joining the more enlightening sessions brought to you by International Open University. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.